Hey there, Jon Chorba here from ReallyEasyGuitarLessons.com, and in this video lesson, I'm going to walk you through 8 different ways that you can play an A chord, also known as an A major chord, on the guitar if you're on the newer side of things. All right, so I'm going to walk you through 8 different ways and then kind of give you an idea of when you would see these versions of them or when you can use them. So what is an A chord? Well, like I said before, the A chord is an A major chord. We tend to drop the major from the vernacular when we talk about it for whatever reason. I don't know. I didn't make up the rules, but I follow them. We call major chords just by what the root note is, okay? So an A major and an A chord, they mean the same thing. So what is that? So an A major chord has 3 notes to it. It has the note A, C sharp, and E. As long as you have an A, a C sharp, and an E being played at the same time, you are creating the sound of an A major chord, okay? A is called the root note. Why it's called an A major chord is because the root of the chord is the note A. C sharp is what's called the third of the chord, and the third of the chord gives it the sound of it being happy and bright. And the E is called the 5th of the chord, which gives the chord stability, okay? So A, C sharp, and E, when they're played at the same time, you are playing an A major chord. Okay, so here is the first way to play an A major chord. I call it the super beginner way. So if you are brand new to guitar, this is probably the easiest way to get started with an A major chord. You're gonna use your first finger on the 2nd fret of the G string, your 2nd finger on the 2nd fret of the B string, and we're gonna leave the E string open, and you're just gonna play those 3 notes. Like I said before, an A major chord has 3 notes, A, C sharp, and E. There's my A, there's my C sharp, and there's my E. Playing those 3 strings at the same time gives me an A major chord. Again, I call this the super beginner version of an A major chord. Again, if you just bought your guitar yesterday, you're really brand new, want to get into playing chords, I would learn that version first because it's very easy. You could substitute it out if you're learning any songs that have an A chord in it. You could use that version of it. It might not sound as good as the full big boy cowboy chord version of an A chord, but it's usable, and I've taught it, especially with students that have either bigger fingers or their fingers are super uncooperative. I like to show them some super easy beginner ways of doing the chords, and that would be how to do it for the A. All right, the second way of doing the A major chord would be the big boy cowboy chord, all right, which isn't really all that dissimilar. I'm gonna use now the 2nd fret of the D string, the 2nd fret of the G string, and the 2nd fret of the B string using my 1st finger, 2nd finger, 3rd finger, okay? You have to squeeze them all into the same fret, which makes it tricky. Sometimes students will switch their fingers in order to make them fit. Whatever works for you. I'm not a finger stickler. As long as you get the chord to sound right, that's all that matters, but this is the way I would do it. And now you want to play the open A string and the open high E string along with those fretted notes. We're not going to play the low E string, just play from the A string down. And even though I'm playing 5 strings, the notes that I'm playing are A, E, A, C sharp, and E. So as long as those 3 notes are represented, that is an A chord. And when you're learning strummy type songs, or just songs in general that have an A chord in them, chances are this is the version that you are going to use. It's going to look like that. All right, the third way to do an A chord is we're gonna actually change it from an A major chord to what's called an A5 chord, or also called a power chord, all right? So this is an easy way, an easy substitution. I do this a lot with students that are, again, on the newer side of things, that trying to learn one of their favorite songs and they're having trouble doing the open position chord version of an A. They need something a little bit simpler, so we just scale it back, and instead of doing it as a full chord, we do it as a power chord. Now, when you do it as a power chord, what that means is you're getting rid of one of the notes. I said that the notes of an A major chord are A, C sharp, and E. Well, we're getting rid of the C sharp, okay? And by getting rid of the C sharp, it's no longer technically an A major chord, but you can substitute it out and it will sound just fine. And it's really, really easy to play. You're gonna just take your first finger and go to the 2nd fret of the D string, and you're going to play the open A string and the D string at the same time. That's the note A, that's the note E. There's no C sharp involved. You just play those 2 notes. You can also do what I call an extended power chord, where I'm going to use my first finger now to hold down the D string and the G string. That G string note is also an A. Now I'm going to play 3 strings. Again, that's called an A5, also known as an A power chord. And you could substitute that out if the A gives you too much trouble. The 4th way is also a power chord, but this one we're going to do at the 5th fret of the E string. So the 5th fret of the E string, that note is an A. I use my first finger on it, and then I'm going to take my 3rd finger and put it on the 7th fret of the A string. So now I have the note A here and the note E here. And I'm going to play just the E and the A strings. This also is an A5. You hear that it sounds just like the A5 up here. A little bit of a different timbre. This one has like a little deeper, bassier response to it. That one's got, because you're using the open string, it's a little twangier. I could also do an extended power chord here by putting my pinky finger right underneath my ring finger on that 7th fret. So now I'm playing the 5th fret, 7th fret, 7th fret, E string, A string, D string, 1st finger, 3rd finger, 4th finger. It is an A5. All right, the 5th way of doing an A chord is actually not an A major chord too, so I'm kind of lying here. I said I was going to show you 8 ways to play an A major chord, and I'm kind of giving you some extra stuff here, but it's all good. This one sounds awesome, especially if you are trying to get into bar chords and they're giving you trouble. You can use this chord. It's a very pretty sounding chord. It's not technically an A major chord. Something else, I'll explain that in a second. But all you're going to do is you're going to take that extended power chord shape. So I'm on the 5th fret of the E string, 7th fret of the A string, 7th fret of the D string. I'm going to take my middle finger and go to the 6th fret of the G string. I'm going to leave the B and the E strings open. And that's called an A add 9. And it is a beautiful, pretty sounding chord. If you just pick individual strings around that chord, it sounds really, really good. And it's great if you're getting into playing bar chords because it forces you to practice just getting a bend in the dip joint of your fingers. Once you get that cemented, it makes it easier to go to the next way, which is doing it as a bar chord, where you put your first finger down across all the strings of the 5th fret. These guys are where they were, 7th fret, 7th fret, 6th fret. And you play all 6 strings. So that also is an A major chord. Again, even though I'm playing 6 strings, I'm only playing 3 notes. That note's an A, that note's an E, that note's an A. There's my C sharp, there's an E again, and there's an A again. So 6 strings, but it's just 3 notes. When you play the A add 9, you have an A, an E, an A, C sharp, then you have this note B, and the note E. So the B is what makes it become a different chord. A add 9, A major. All right, the 7th way of doing an A chord would be to do what I call the Hendrix F, okay? Because Jimi Hendrix did this a lot. He kind of pioneered this chord form. So we're going to use the 5th fret of the B string, the 6th fret of the G string, and the 7th fret of the D string. I'm using my first finger, my second finger, third finger. Those notes, A, C sharp, E. So you can do just those 3 notes. A little advanced would be to bar that 5th fret of the E string, so I'm using my first finger on both. But if that's too advanced, you could just remove that and play those 3 strings. And then what Hendrix would do is he'd take his thumb and he'd hold down that 5th fret of the E string with his thumb. And when he does that, he's letting it touch the A string so it's muted. And this is a movable shape. By doing it on the 5th fret, you're doing it as an A chord. So with or without the thumb, if you don't have the thumb on it, you're playing from the D string down. If you put your thumb on it, you could play from the E string down. And in this case, it's okay to have the A string open because it's in the chord, but if you're moving it around, then sometimes it's not okay because it would sound really bad if you had the A string open there. So you want your thumb to touch the A string. It's pressing into the E, but it's just dampening the A to mute it. And the last way I'm going to teach you how to play an A chord is the hardest one, but it's worth knowing, especially if you have any desire to ever play lead guitar, because visualizing this shape is very, very, very important, okay? I call it the C shape. And you're going to use your pinky finger on the 12th fret of the A string, your ring finger on the 11th fret of the D string, your index finger on the G string, 9th fret, and your middle finger on the B string, 10th fret. I got an A here, a C sharp here, an E here, and an A again. This shape is commonly used by John Mayer, Jimi Hendrix, John Frusciante from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And again, for lead, if you ever have any desire to get into lead guitar playing, there's a lot of cool little melodies and stuff that you can do around this shape, so it's worth knowing. Now, there's more ways to do an A than what I just described. If you get into, spread triads and then doing them as arpeggios, there's a whole different bunch of ways you can play one specific chord on the guitar. That's what makes guitar cool. But those 8 ways will get you started. Again, I think way number 2, the common open position chord, is the most common form of that, the one you're probably going to use the most, but it's worth knowing how to do the other ways if you need to modify if something is too hard for you. So thank you so much for watching. If you have any suggestions on other videos you'd like to see, please leave a comment below, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like and subscribe button to get more videos like this. If you are a beginner or intermediate guitar player and you are totally lost, confused, overwhelmed, not sure what you should be working on, head over to reallyeasyguitarlessons.com/quiz where you can take my free guitar practicing assessment. I'll ask you a few short questions, and then based off of your answers, I will tell you what your top practicing priorities are. You could find that at reallyeasyguitarlessons.com/quiz. It's totally free. Results are delivered instantly. Again, reallyeasyguitarlessons.com/quiz. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you next time.